Hello, everybody. That was a bit of a bumpy start, but thanks everyone for waiting. And with me today is the guy that you've been waiting to see, Professor Dungeon Master. How are you, sir? I am not getting any sound, sir. I think you're muted or something.
I'm terrific. Thank you, Carl. Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine, thanks. Okay,
Sorry to keep you waiting.
no worries. It's just one of those things with the time zones. I think I messed them up a few times myself. So let's say a quick hello to the people in the chat. So, hi Charlene, hi Dungeon Matron, hi Scatter Terrain, I see Terraintronics as well, and Campaign Terrain. Hi everyone. Sophie, and there's Dirty Basement Terrain, Mia Geeked, and Sean Raider, who were extremely enthusiastic to, excited to hear you talk. So there we go. Anyone else? And Earthman Brick, I don't know if he's still in chat, but he was there earlier, and Questboard Train. Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us. Oh, and Phil. Hi Phil. So, Professor, would you like to give a brief overview of yourself and your channel before we start?
I am Professor Dungeon Master. My channel is Dungeon Craft, and it's about homebrew and independent Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. And I've been doing it about 5 years. I've been on YouTube, and I've also designed a few things over the last couple of decades as well. And my show goes Dungeon Craft. We air usually once or twice a week, and we do tips on how to play the game. We do news and reviews of different games, and every once in a while a crafting thing.
Yeah, designing a few things might be a bit of an understatement. You've been putting stuff out. Okay, so we have about an hour for this stream because our time is kind of restricted. So today we're going to go with some prepared questions. All right? Okay, and at the end of that, we'll try to go through the community showcase as well because I know that some of you have been putting a lot of stuff in there. Okay, so question number one. So, Professor, in your videos, you've talked a lot about literature and history and how dungeon masters can draw from those sources for their games. Is that something that started, an interest that started from role playing, or is it something that your interest in role playing started from? Like, which came first?
That's a fantastic question. I've never been asked that question, and it's one of the best questions I've ever been asked. I noticed that when you asked me. So I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was about 11 years old, is when I first read the rules myself. And it was never taught to me. I had to read the rules. I didn't know anybody else that played the game. And as I grew at 11 years old, my only literature was comic books. It was like Spider-Man and Batman. And when I grew older and I read, I remember the first piece of literature I read that made an impact on me that was from school was Macbeth by William Shakespeare.
All right.
I mean, I had read like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and I was reading that at a young age. But I played Dungeons and Dragons first, and when I read Macbeth, I was fascinated because immediately, halfway through the play, I said, "This is Dungeons and Dragons, but it's Shakespeare."
Even more
And
so than Lord of the Rings?
more so,
All right.
it was more. It was more like my games. Macbeth was more like my games than Lord of the Rings because most of my characters were dead. It looked like more like the end of Macbeth than Lord of the Rings. And then I started making connections all the time between what I read and Dungeons and Dragons. And I remember when I was in college, I studied literature. So, of course, I read Aristotle's Poetics. And then I took elective classes. I took screenwriting and I had to read Aristotle's Poetics again. And I took screenwriting too. I had to read Poetics again. And then I took a film class, even though I didn't study film, but those are just one off classes. I had to read Aristotle's Poetics again. I read Aristotle's Poetics like 4 times.
All right.
And to this day, I think that if players ask me, like, what's a book that of literature that I should read to understand stories better? It's Aristotle's Poetics. I think that every dungeon master and player should read that book.
I think you had done a video about that at one point, yeah?
I did that. I don't know if I did it on YouTube. I definitely did it on. I probably did. I know it's in the master class. It's in my master's class
Yeah,
on Patreon.
I think it was there. I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe, but I think I recall seeing it. Oh, hi, Kimera Gaming and Jorge. Good to see you. So yeah, from what I understand, it's like role playing came first, and then the literature came after that. Then,
The what? I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Uh, so from what I understand, gaming came first, and then literature came after that.
Yes, that's correct.
All
That's
right.
how it worked.
Okay, jumping on to the next question. I know you often talked about movies, books, and older adventure modules for inspiration. But is there any particular special source of inspiration for you, like a particular series of books or TV shows, a particular old movie that you know that you go back to and you're always like, I can get ideas from here?
I was really inspired in terms of literature. Conan
Hmm.
by Robert Howard, Fawford and Grey Mouser by Fritz Leiber were very inspirational to me as far as my vision of role playing games. Fantasy role playing games are far more informed by them than Tolkien. Not that Tolkien isn't good, but my own games are more like if they were a movie, they'd be less like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings and more like John Milius's Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of the whole grimdark aesthetic and things. And yeah, we've been playing Deathbringer recently. Sean is running a Ravenloft campaign for us with that, and yeah, I like how the rules back that up.
Yeah, that was Runehammer, Hanker Infernal at Runehammer's idea to have the rules. I have one here, and they fold out like a menu.
Yep.
That was his idea. He's the one that figured out that presentation. But I prefer very minimalist rules.
Yeah, and it does make a difference. I know you've always been advocating for minimalist rules on your channel, but uh, until someone sat down and we tried it out, we've been playing Easy D6 as well, and you only realize how much of a difference it makes is when you sit down and play with minimalist rules, and I found it so much more fun.
I agree. And I've played with the author of Easy D6, DM Scotty. I've played with him in real life, and his games are so fast. They're very much like a movie. And
Oh yeah,
people like my players have played with him as well. And I think that in terms of game mastering style, they say we're very similar. We just want to get the rules out of the way. And Easy D6 is a very good rules. It's very well written. It's super clear, and it really gets the rules out of the way. I love it.
yeah, same here. But let's jump on to the next question. So you've had a number of adventures published in Dungeon magazine. Uh, was it Dungeon or Dragon magazine? Sorry,
Dungeon.
Dungeon. Okay, I get the two mixed up sometimes. So how do you get the job?
Well, I didn't have a permanent job. I worked as a freelancer.
Hmm.
So that means I had to submit work to them. I had to send, the process was you send a query letter. This is the scenario that I would like to propose. I had a scenario. It's kind of like it was a murder mystery. It was a sort of a locked room, Agatha Christie style murder mystery. And I proposed it to them, and they said, yes, we like it. And then they said, send us the manuscript. And I would send them the manuscript, and then they would take a look at that manuscript and either accept it. Well, reject it. They would either reject it in that stage when they saw the first draft, or they would say, these are the things we want you to change. And then you'd have to change them, send it back. And back in those days, there was no email. So you had to just wait for 4 to 6 weeks to
Oh.
get your package back. And then it would go back and forth several times, and then they would publish it. And I know that they had some financial difficulties, but they always paid me on time.
So,
And that was how. And every time I published something, even though I had published something before, you didn't get any preference. You still went into the slush pile,
okay.
and you had to persuade them. So that's why I will say that I'm not going to say my adventures were the best adventures, but each one is better than the last one.
I see, because you have to top yourself, otherwise you're not going to stand out, kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. The more popular the dungeon became, the more competitors I had, and the better the adventures had to be. And one of those competitors was Chris Perkins,
Okay.
the designers. And Chris Perkins, every month he had a great adventure, and I had to, to just get published. You have to. That's who you're competing with. And it was a good experience. I worked with very good editors, including Wolfgang Bauer, who now owns Kobold Press, and I worked with him a lot, and as well as Tony DiTerlizzi, the artist. He
Oh,
did
yeah.
Planescape, and then he's gone on to do the Spiderwick Chronicles. So
So we're talking that, the back and forth would be a process of months in total, yeah?
a month, it would be like a year
Oh,
to
all
publish
right.
a single adventure.
Okay, so apart from that, back and forth editorial cycle, how do you find any particular differences from that to when you publish your own adventures, the way you're doing now with Macbeth and Frankenstein and the others?
The biggest difference was that DM Scotty and Gareth, the DMG, they approached me for Macbeth.
Okay.
Well, I had watched them on YouTube, and I was a fan, and I was a subscriber, and eventually, and out of the blue, they contacted me and said, we have a publishing company, Quest Givers. We want to do modules, and we want to collaborate with you. And so that was a lot different because they were coming to seek me, and the collaborative process was a lot more. Well, I had a lot more say. I had a lot more
All right.
say because with Dungeon, one of the adventures was a better locked room murder mystery. It's called The Unforgiven. It was this revenant was stalking this monastery, and it was a little bit like Name of the Rose, but
Okay.
not as good. It wasn't as good. It had supernatural elements in this revenant, and I remember that one was, um, I had just wanted to do a, a timeline and not keyed locations.
Okay.
And they said, no, we have to do keyed locations, because our readers need keyed locations. We have to have a map of the whole monastery with all the rooms in the graph paper. And so I actually wanted to do something innovative that would have saved them money because they wouldn't, the word count would have been much smaller. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. So with Quest Givers, with Macbeth, it was more like I could say what I wanted. And if they had an idea, I could always say no to it. However, I did write it up and I did say, you're the editors, you could change whatever you like. And we did send it back and forth. Only it took a few weeks instead of but there's a big difference when you're working and when you're on YouTube, and then people come and they seek you out, and I think it's easier. It's they're more likely to say, yes, you can do this thing.
Yeah, I imagine that if there isn't some sort of company policy, it's also more open to new ideas and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and it's also it can be R-rated too.
Ah, okay, because that's something that Dungeon Magazine would not have allowed at the time. Yeah.
Away. No.
Mm. Okay, so speaking of adventures, I know that apart from the published ones, you also put your notebooks up on Patreon. And those are really awesome, by the way. They're concise, they've got lots of information, the diagrams are awesome. And, they are packed with a lot of information, but what's the least amount of information you'd be comfortable running a game with?
I generally have a page in front of me. I have a
Hmm?
page of notes. Whatever I'm running, I'll reduce it to a page of notes. So I'm running the Lost City now, right, which is big. And at each session, I reduce everything to a two-column page of notes or a map. If I have a map, I'll have the dungeon rooms written on it. I'll take a product like the Lost City and I will rewrite it. I find I remember it better that way. I rewrite it with just a few lines. With instead of a large page of this is the embalming room and this is all the stuff that's in it. I'll put embalming room, 6 tables, smells like oil, shadows here, and I'll have the stats for the shadow monsters.
All
And
right.
I find that I can remember it better. And then when it comes time to run the game, I don't really need to refer to it.
Okay, so basically you're saying that as long as you've gone through it and you've had the time to process it, then just the least amount of cues that you need to run the stuff are enough. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but I would never do anything without notes, even though I might not refer to
Yeah,
them.
all
I'll
right.
have the notes there, but usually by then I know just what's going to go on and what the players, if they go left or right, what's going to happen.
Okay, but
And
so the notes are more like a safety net in case you need them rather than something you're always referring to.
exactly, exactly. It's like I don't know if you're a big David Bowie fan, but David Bowie used to have the lyrics of his songs on the stage with him. There would be a stand with the lyrics on of all the songs there, and he would never refer to them. But he was afraid he'd forget them. He had to have them on the stage.
All right.
That's kind of the way it is with notes for me. I have to have them, but I usually don't refer to them. And for something, when I go to convention, I don't even take the copy of Macbeth with me. I just run it off my head, and then I have the handouts. I have a folder with handouts.
Okay. I remember in one of your videos you had mentioned that especially for box text or situations where a character is speaking to the players, you prefer not to look at the notes just so you can maintain eye contact with the players when you're talking. So is that also part of the memorization process, or how do you work with that? Because that must be a lot of information to
If it's really important information to the plot, it's an integral thing. Then I will write down a line, and I will say, you know, that way I can just read that one line. The
Okay.
rest of it I ad lib.
All
So
right.
if it's a mystery and there's a clue in there, that's written down. But otherwise, I do it. I often imagine the voice of the character. I do different voices. I do different accents. I try to live it as that character, as that non-player character.
I think okay. So I'm guessing that's part of the all this the summarizing, the learning the accents and stuff is part of preparation. But what's the largest amount of preparation you would do for a game?
What's the largest amount? I always do about the same amount of preparation. I sit down. Usually, I run a game Saturday afternoon. I'll sit down. one evening of the week and plan for about 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
And Saturday morning is a safety net. In the event that all something gets in the way, I'll prepare Saturday morning, which is what I did yesterday for the Lost City. Because I put out an emergency video yesterday. I put a
Yeah.
video out at the last second on a Friday, and I wrote and shot and edited the video, put it up on Friday. That ruined my Friday. So I spent all morning. I work in time blocks. And so it's always about 3 hours of preparation. I would say I put about an hour of prep in for every hour that you see at the table.
Okay.
I couldn't do less than that. Unless it's something I've run a number of times. If it's a simple adventure, if it's just, dungeon rooms, if I've done it a million times, then I could walk in and run it. But if it's an original piece for my group that I've never run before, I put in about 3 hours.
Yeah, and especially, I know we've got the whole idea of the flowchart where, or the illusion of choice and stuff, but some of the plots sorry, most of the plots you work on are more complicated than, knock in the door and kick some orcs or stuff. So yeah, that makes sense.
You've really read my stuff very carefully.
I've been watching your channel for a few years now, so yeah.
I'm looking around. A lot of the stuff with the flow charts are things that people could get on the Alexandrian website.
Hmm.
He calls it node style play. I learned it from Tracy Hickman. He calls it the matrix, like a closed matrix and I'm looking around to see if I have, and I don't, like if I have a diagram, but essentially it goes, you start at point A and you can go there or there. And then from there, it can go there, there, or there. And then it just keeps branching and eventually it dovetails back to this is the climax. So I often, if it's some sort of mystery or something where players, they're not in a dungeon is a very closed matrix. There's only so many directions you can go.
Hmm.
So, and really, when you think about it, a dungeon is a flow chart. That's a flow chart. It's an encounter flow chart.
True. Yeah.
And so what I do is I do that and plan out, well, if they do this, they might go here. And I try to anticipate what they do and then make allowances for me being completely unable to anticipate the weird thing they're going to actually do.
Yeah, there's always at least that one player, isn't there? Oh, I see that Chris has joined the chat and he's saying, "Thanks for all you do, Professor. You're a real inspiration and your channel is superb."
Thank you, Chris. I don't see the I don't see the chat. So
Uh,
you'll
that's okay. I'll bring up if anything comes up. I'll bring it up. Don't worry. Okay, so next question. If you had to give someone one piece of DMing advice, what would it be?
for a new game master.
Any game master, I guess.
The best piece of advice I could give, the top piece of advice
Mhm.
is your game is not a novel that you are writing. It's not a the game master is not a storyteller. The game master designs encounters. The story emerges and it has three elements. It's got the game master, it's you, then it's got the players. They're the ones that really drive the story. They're the storytellers because they make the decisions. And the other storyteller is the dice. And I think many game masters they have, they want to tell their story, and it is a story game, but it's also a game. You have to have those other elements.
So basically, don't try to push the players into the particular path. Is that it?
Not at all. No, you cannot do that. If you do that, they're going to resent it, and they'll start deliberately trying to do something else. If you if you write Lord of the Rings, if you were to run it as a game, the first thing those players would do is they're going to take the ring for themselves. They're going to kill Gandalf. They're going to take the ring. And you just have to live with that. And that's why you don't design, when people say, I've written a whole campaign. How could you write a campaign? Like, how could that possibly, you can't do that because the players haven't had their say yet.
Yeah, it's like that. What was it? No plan survives contact with the enemy, or the players in this case.
Yeah, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Yeah. You don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. I have no idea what they're going to do before we sit down and play.
Yeah, right now I've just got an image in my head of the hobbits going up to the ring wraith and going, "Hello, you work for us now."
That's what they would do.
Hey, hi Tina Martins, glad to see you. Okay, jumping onto the other side of your channel and your hobbying. Apart from the ultimate dungeon terrain, you often show some great terrain in your videos. Are there any pieces that you think are must-haves, or any pieces that you are especially proud of?
So I have this one. Let me see. Let me get it. Okay. You see that? All right.
I see that.
All right. So this is a piece that can go on my ultimate dungeon terrain. And I made it. It's got a wood bottom and it's an acid pit.
Okay.
And it's a little recessed so you could put some sort of felter over that. And it could be a bottomless pit. But this has been very useful. This is a piece of terrain I've used multiple times with my players, and they always think it's new. And I have some old skeletons and stuff in there. I spent a lot of time on it. That's an episode. I think this is one of my last crafting episodes of Dungeon Craft, but this is more utilitarian than I thought it would be. And I like to have terrain that has more than one purpose.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, one of the things that we are always talking about here is storage space. So if you can double up the terrain, that also always helps. But I have a question because I think you often mentioned that your players have been mostly playing with you for several years now. And you mentioned that they always think it's a new piece. Is that because of the context, or is it because of the stuff you put on top of it? Is there any reason for that?
Both,
All right.
both. The stuff we can always dress it. You put new pillars on. You put a new altar. It could become a torture room. It could become a sacrifice room. It's that, and my players don't have very good memories.
Oh, I guess that helps.
Sometimes I'm delighted to remember, sometimes I'm delighted to find they don't remember a story and I can run it again. I can reskin it and do it again.
That would be convenient, yeah. Okay, and another question. When did you start crafting terrain and using miniatures for your games?
I started using miniatures when I was about 14 and I couldn't paint them very well. And they didn't have the Games Workshop magazines. Like once Games Workshop came out with, their monthly advertisement, which is what their magazine is, then you could see the outstanding painting that they could do. But I lived before the internet, so I never knew that painting miniatures were a thing or how to paint them. No one, I wasn't part of a miniature wargaming scene, but I did purchase. I think the company was called Grenadier and Rob Partha. They
Oh, I
had,
remember those.
yeah, and those were the first Dungeons and Dragons mass-produced ones, and I used those. And then I graduated to dry erase maps. I remember going to Gen Con in the 80s and seeing a dry erase flip mat for the first time. And I said, well, we have to have a dry erase mat. And then the game got raised with Dwarven Forge, and I bought a metric ton of Dwarven Forge, right? So like these ones,
Okay.
and I had them, and then I realized slowly that this looks really cool. and it's good if you want to indicate like a battle in a hallway. It's terrific. But when you're playing around a table, you're putting out all this terrain on the table, and it's cluttering up that table, and it's a lot to clean up and set up, and it can and you can't see over the walls. You can't see over the walls. So
And you have
I
to reach
started
into
making,
them and stuff like that, yeah.
yeah. So I started making my own terrain, and that's how I started doing that. And I started watching DM Scotty at the DM's Craft, and he eventually became my publisher and my friend. It's very strange, the internet.
It is, yeah. It's a strange and wonderful place.
Yeah.
Okay, and next, do you have any advice or tips you can share with other crafters?
Couple of my tips. Number one, be very careful not to slice your fingertip off, and you have to you have to be very careful with your fingertips. That's the number one my number one crafting advice. Anyone who's a crafter has either sliced a fingertip off at some point. There's been some sort of accident. You can't be too careful. You can't be too careful. You always got to use a metal ruler when you're cutting things and just be super attentive and craft a lot of things because you get better at it. My early attempts at crafting are not as good as the ones I do, can do now.
Yeah, I think that's the last one, especially, is a good advice for any skill, really. Don't expect to be great right out of the gate.
Right.
Okay, so the next one is a question from Sean. Who is that bringer, and where did he come from? And actually, I'd like to know as well.
Right. Deathbringer was first mentioned in the second or third episode of Dungeon Craft. It was about making characters. And I said that there should be some discussion in advance. I didn't use the word session zero because it didn't exist yet. But I said you should have a meeting or at least, talk about it in text ahead of time. And you as the game master say, this is my setting. And these are the types of characters I want you to play, and in that way, somebody, if you say, well, we're going to have a political intrigue scenario set in 15th century Venice, and everyone's going to be, spies and diplomats. Someone doesn't show up playing and I'm Deathbringer, because there's always that guy in the group that just like he doesn't care what the setting is. He's going to play his character. So in the comments of that video, someone said, Deathbringer is my spirit animal. And other people liked that comment. And I started realizing that's just a funny idea. So I created a character who is like that all the time. And he became my channel's mascot. So he didn't really it come out of my brain, as a writer of fiction, as a designer of role-playing games. The greatest thing you could do is have a memorable character. And the one that's the most successful is the one I put the least thought into. He just manifested himself
It's kind
out
of
of nowhere.
That's kind of mind-blowing, but you know, the typical, Farmer Jenkins, the typical NPC you put zero effort into, you just had to randomly roll the name because you didn't think about it in advance, and suddenly he's your player's favorite NPC.
Yes, yeah. I have a video I'm doing now on NPCs. I've written it, and it's exactly you can never create an NPC, design them to be loved, and have the players love them. It never works out that way. It's always some random henchman or somebody. And I have a whole video about that, about these NPCs that my players love that did not exist before the session happened.
Okay, I will look forward to watching that. So it sounds like a lot of fun. So basically, if you want to make memorable NPCs, just go organic.
Yeah, you can't. All you need is a name, and you need it some sort of tick so that they seem real, like the way they speak or an expression that they make, and the players will decide which the NPCs they want to talk to. They'll decide who their favorite NPCs are.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think you had mentioned at some point that you were doing an extended edition of Deathbringer. And is there anything that you can tell us about that or any upcoming projects?
The extended version of Deathbringer is on Patreon, on my Patreon all the time, and everyone, I think at $5 and up, I think you can get it, and I update it. I'm constantly working on Deathbringer, and the challenge with Deathbringer is I'm a full-time teacher, and so I, for my writing, I need a lot of time to focus on things, and between teaching and YouTubing
Yeah, I can imagine.
and writing and the other, and I have another job, but I won't talk about it. But between all those things, writing takes the longest. And with the amazing Kickstarters like Shadow Dark and Knave, they keep raising the game.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
And I have to do something that's a little different to be worth putting out there. And but I am constantly tinkering with Deathbringer and continue to do so. But I would say it's about 3 years from a physical publication. Everybody wants to know when it's going to be physically published or Kickstarter. It's 3 years. Probably it'll coincide with my retiring from being a teacher. That really would. Then I'll have the full time to devote to that.
I guess. So yeah, that's another thing that I would be looking forward to.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you can get whatever I write. The latest version is always up on Patreon, and it includes more rules.
Awesome.
But you can get this version on Drive Through RPG, and that's really all you need.
Yeah, I think the only thing I haven't seen in action is the Grim Scribe. I really like the concept behind it, but yeah, I will definitely have to roll up another character for that because that sounds like lot of fun. Okay, and oh, one last thing. I think you're doing independent RPG month this month, yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so we want to tell people about it once we're here. I'm pretty sure most of them already know, but
So it's my idea to have a month where we just focus on independent RPGs instead of the biggest one. And so I have been reviewing and I've been highlighting, even before the month began, even in June, I've been making a more conscious effort to cover other games that I like and independent and homebrew D&D. So, recently I did a review of Mazes, right, by Ninth Level Games, which is a very good game, very sword and sorcery. I did a review of Easy D6. I reviewed the game, and this is the Book of Quests that comes out this Wednesday in
nice.
the US. So I'm just going to be, oh, and I'm reading Goblin Slayer now.
Okay.
So this is based on the Japanese uh, anime, right? And so I'll be doing that. And I'll just be focusing on games that are not maybe in the mainstream, just to give them attention for a month.
Nice.
Now, that was my idea, and other people are doing it, so that's good. We'll see if it works.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've always found your reviews very insightful, especially when you come up with, hey, there's this, and you could also do this. I think that gives a lot more value rather than just it does this, it does this, it does that. So yeah. Okay, I don't have any other questions right now. So Would like to have a look at the community showcase, see what everyone has been throwing in there.
Sure.
Okay, go. I think you should be able to see it in my Zoom in a second.
Oh, okay. I see this. Let's see. Oh, that's amazing. That
Okay,
is really
let's start off with this one. It's from Lawrence from Dirty Basement Terrain.
wow.
That's a
That's stunning.
whole lot of pillars.
Yeah. That is fantastic. I love that. Yeah, that is really stunning.
Yeah, Lawrence does a lot of terrain builds like this and scatter terrain and things. Plus, he and Dungeon Matron has this competition where they're trying to make the creepiest thing with baby doll heads. So I don't
Hmm.
I don't think we have anything here with baby doll heads right now, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, this is from Sean, Full Moon Crafting.
Is that just that's like the front of the building, right?
I think it's the whole building.
It's okay, yeah. That's really good. Ooh, that's outstanding. That is really
If I remember correctly, that's the building is an MDF kit which has been pimped up, and these are 3D prints.
yeah. I love the painting on that wood. That is good.
Oh yeah,
The highlighting. That's
I see the springs in the sofa.
yeah, the springs are visible. That is really neat. I think I had a couch like that at college, university,
That color or that condition?
in that condition.
Okay, if you
I
can.
love the leather on that chair.
Mm,
That's a good.
that sort of scatter pieces that
Yeah.
could set up a really dense cool scene.
Yeah. Makes me want to paint more terrain. I have so much. I have a lot of terrain from what is it? Do I have any in there? I have a whole bunch of mantic terrain that I'm meaning to. They do very good terrain, and I'm always I want to make it that way I can just throw it in a bag and just have separate terrain for a different game. Like I just want Macdeath in a box for Gen Con or whatever,
Oh,
and you just
nice.
take the box, you know?
Oh, DM Scotty joined us. Good evening, sir. Okay, jumping on the next one. Okay, this one's from Earthman Brick. Junk Robots.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's his version of these Warhammer 40k robots.
That is neat. That is neat. Oh, those blades look so good.
He makes them by cutting holes in a cardboard disc with a paper punch.
Yeah, that's stunning.
Okay, let's see. This is from Chris. He's building a Tudor house.
I like how he built the frame. Yeah, he framed it out ahead of time.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that he's pre-painting them now, so it makes it easier to paint them without getting paint on the plaster.
That's a good idea. I wish I had known that when I first started. That's very good. Yeah, I like the walls are very good.
I think it's a roller, and the windows are Lego, if I remember correctly.
That's one of the best things about terrain making now is you can get little doors and windows.
Oh yeah.
I have tons of those.
Are you into 3D printing at all, or is that something you haven't touched yet?
No, that's one more, that's a separate hobby. And I know like there's got to be a place for it, and you got to vent it. It's going to smell, and it's just like I'm maxed out on hobbies, but that's a wonderful use of corrugated
Oh yeah,
cardboard there. It's very good.
yeah. I mean, speaking for myself, I just know that if I try it, I'll end up drowning in unpainted miniatures. So I'm not even going anywhere near that. It's a nice setup.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I love going to conventions. Like a lot of times with conventions, especially bigger ones, I just walk around and look at terrain, and see what people are doing.
Okay, more from Chris. My take on UDT. Thanks, Professor. A big square 24-inch board carved with Wylock style, 1.25-inch grid in concentric curvilinear tracks to represent zones for abstract distance.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm a big fan of Wylock.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He, he's a good guy in real life too. He's a very good guy. We hung out together at a convention once, and I played in his game. He's a very good game master.
Yeah, I never met him in person, but I did have him on the stream a few months ago. I think it was late last year. He's a lot of fun to talk to as well.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's
Yep, no two ways about that.
the everyone here is very smart, doing their timbers in advance.
No, I think
Yeah,
this is still Chris, but I think he went into
yeah.
full mass
Well,
production goblin mode.
yeah. Chris is the genius.
Yep.
That is that's smart thinking. I love the
Okay.
glow on those stars. Is
I
that paint?
I think it's actually no, it is an actual LED inside it.
Oh, it's an LED inside it. It's really cool.
So yeah, it's a hollowed out piece of XPS with LEDs inside.
The texture on that rock is so good.
I think it's
Really,
literally just the foil ball thing. It's lovely work.
yeah, it's very good.
Okay, I think this is the one we saw earlier. Oh, and yeah, foam core desert ones.
Oh, that's good. Wow, I love the painting on that. I love the. I'm doing the Lost City now, so I'm
Hmm.
trying to figure out. And I was actually watching, I think, a Wylock. No, it was Black Magic Craft on how to paint like sandstone. Because now I got
Oh
to
yeah,
figure it out because I want this series of videos to have a different look.
yeah. I never managed to get sandstone painting in a way that I like because where I live practically all the buildings are made of limestone,
Uh-huh.
so the color is pretty close there. So it's like I can tell immediately if the painting is off. So I could never get it exactly right.
Yeah, it's. I'm experimenting still. That's nice snow.
Yeah, I think okay. This is from Sean again. I wanted to say thank you, Professor. When I first started out, I asked the question on how to make snow and ice on the Tabletop Crafters Guild. The professor responded with my question with one of his videos on how to make a snow and ice UDT.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for making an episode. I remember that episode. And yeah, that looks great. That looks better than the stuff I made.
Yeah, I think you're still
Love
to blame for that though.
the gray on top is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't craft as much as I used to because well, I have so much of my terrain does double duty. I could just redress it now,
Hmm.
and I'm really a minimalist. And but also um those videos they don't do that well on my channel.
Really?
Yeah, they don't. No. Some of them they have high views like the UDT, but the more recent stuff that I've done doesn't get a lot of views because there are other people that like Black Magic Craft that do just dedicated to that, and the algorithm is brutal. The YouTube algorithm is brutal. It really buries things that If you put out something and it's not as popular as your previous something, they bury the whole channel.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but
Because I mean,
um,
your crafting videos were very interesting.
I am going to be doing some more.
Okay, yeah, happy to hear that.
And they are also time consuming to make. That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
It's an enormous amount of footage you have to film.
Yep, I hear you.
Love the dry brushing on that one, on that
Okay,
tower, and the modularity. It's very good.
this is also from Chris.
Yeah, Chris is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really really good. I love those stairs, the modular stairs.
Oh, I think the whole floor is modular.
Yeah. I love versatility.
Yep.
I love things that can be used in multiple ways, taken apart and put together in different combinations.
Okay, and dumpster, fire sold separately.
Yeah.
Okay, here we have okay, fraction of Mia's crafting.
Well, that's outstanding.
Some lava tiles. I think this is from the VTT she was using. She's using her terrain as a backdrop.
It's very good.
Yeah, Mia was on
That is
this. Sorry, please go ahead.
that is professional.
Yeah, yeah, I was saying she was on the stream I think in January, and yeah, the amount of material she had going on. It's not just the volume of it. It's like it really is professional level stuff.
That's very good.
And her dungeon pizza.
That's really outstanding. I love those walls. Those are really good. That's actually one of the next videos I'm doing. I'm going to be doing another one on walls.
Oh, okay.
That's on the list of things to do. But yeah, Mia's stuff is great.
Okay, so okay, and this is Lawrence's gourd.
The
Start
shading on that is wonderful.
so he started off with a gourd and then added the whole door and windows and stuff.
Is that a real gourd?
It is a real gourd, yeah.
It's outstanding.
I love the colors on it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That is stunning.
Yeah, obviously since it's Lawrence, there's also a corpse in there somewhere. Probably to that
There's a
window.
corpse in it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's an interesting detail. That is really cool. Oh,
there
look
we
at
go.
that. That is fantastic. That's a competition winner. That's a competition winner. The shading on that door is so good.
Yeah, I mean all the shading on it is pretty spot on. So yeah, this is for a challenge we're doing. I think it's for yeah, it's for August where we're doing this challenge where we build something using natural materials. So this is one of Lawrence's entries. I say one of because he's a bit of an overachiever when it comes to these things. So he'll be probably making another six.
Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, he's saying witches can have pretty houses if they want to. Yeah, he can't help but gross it up a bit. Okay, so Professor, we're in at 54 minutes now, so we managed to fit into the allocated time. That's awesome. Okay, do you have any closing thoughts or anything that you would like to tell everyone before we wrap up?
Well, my Patreon is on Patreon. It's Dungeon Craft on Patreon. I also have two modules, Macbeth and Frankenstein, available at Quest Givers, and also Deathbringer and Eldritch Hack on Drive Through RPG.
Yeah,
And
all
I'll
the
be
links should be
here.
in the description below.
All right. Well, thank you. And I'll be appearing at Gen Con in August. I'll be there.
Nice. Okay, can we do the Deathbringer voice?
No.
Aw.
I can't. Deathbringer is his own thing and has I can't. I can set,
Okay.
I can say like watch more Dungeon Craft. That's how he would say it.
Yeah, that works.
But he's his own person.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thanks everybody. We'll be back next week with Thomas Prinen of Mordheim fame. So lovely seeing you all, and have a great week. Bye.
Bye bye.